What's going on, everybody? We are back. We are episode, I believe, number 17 of the Club and Sub podcast. This week, it's going to be Rakic versus Smith. I don't remember what this is replacing, but it's replacing some main event that I think was better. But we have a special guest this tonight. We got Kelton here. You can find him on Twitter at MMA Kelton. C and Lags. I'm losing both here. C and Quinn both couldn't make it tonight. And before we get started, as usual, I am wearing the Square hat, which was given to me by squaresandsharps.com. Go check it out. A lot of great merch. Good portion of their profits go to charity. Great website. Again, it's www.squaresandsharps.com. So real quick, before we jump into this card, just go over last week real quick. So I only had 2 plays last week. I had Mizuki for 1 unit, minus 145, and that was – yeah, it was a pretty bad bet in hindsight. She just, I downplayed the physicality, which, I mean, given that I'm always preaching physicality in women's fights, that just kind of stupid in hindsight. So, yeah, that didn't work out. But then I had 5 units on Selecki, minus 116. That hit. And so, yeah, I mean, it went pretty much like exactly as I thought it would. He got him into the clinch easy. He gave his back as soon as he went to the clinch, and it was over. Lags, how's your week?
Not too great, but I had 5 plays overall. So first play was a Selecki. We call that to a T. I think pretty much spotted the defensive grappling liabilities for Hubbard. So that was good cash. And then so I had a 2-unit parlay with Agapova and Munoz. But I guess the only thing I could really say is I got Agapova at minus 560, so I wasn't laying that crazy number. But still, at the end of the day, I guess it was a bad bet. I didn't think she was really going to gas as hard as she did. So I ate that, and then I had 1 unit on the Pashnell fight ends in a KO, so that cashed. And so pretty much my night ended with Agapova and Munoz crash and everything. So, but overall it was 2 and 3 with minus 1.64 units.
Luke, how was your week?
So yeah, this was probably like one of my heavier slates of the year. I think I had like 16 units on the line. Only end of the night, profit 1.46 units. Yeah, the Munoz fight at the end kind of killed me. We'll get into it. First bet, I had Agapova Dobson under 1.5 at minus 115. So I feel extremely greasy about cashing that one because it couldn't have been more opposite of how I thought the fight was going to go. And I think pretty much 99.9% of the people are going to also agree with me that I thought Agapova was going to run through her. But, she came out gassed and she ended up getting finished. So I'm not going to call that a good bet at all because my read couldn't have been more wrong at all. But I'll take the cash. I had 2 units on Mizuki Inoue at minus 160. Definitely a bad bet. Largely my bet here, I was trying to get some questions answered on Lamos, and those questions were somewhat answered. I also thought like Mizuki looked a lot different in terms of what her tape kind of showed. Like her head movement really wasn't there. She wasn't really able to cut the cage off much. Her volume wasn't really there as much as I thought it would be. I thought she might be able to mix in takedowns more, but Lamos showed a solid defense. So kind of a funky fight, definitely not justifying the bet at all. But yeah, so took an L on that one. I threw 3 units on Daniel Rodriguez at minus 185. Well, that was one hell of a sweat as he got dropped early. But, showed some perseverance, came back and got the KO. I think it'd be easy to say I regret this bet considering he nearly got finished. But to be honest, I think that was really Grant's win condition the whole fight. It just so happened he almost met it. But I think from a probability standpoint, that doesn't happen very often. So I'm really not going to call this a bad bet. And I'm fine with it. So I cashed that one. 2.5 units on Joe Selecki, minus 112. No real surprises for me here. As you guys touched on, I just think the grappling edge of Selecki here was massive. And he was the much better fighter. So happy to cash that one. 3 units, Pedro Munoz, minus 200. I'm not going to call this fight a robbery at all. I think it was a close competitive fight, but it was one of those fights where it's just because the scoring system is the way it is, and it's kind of a gray area of what you determine as effective striking. you're gonna get these different decisions from card to card. So I mean, I thought Pedro landed the better shots. He controlled the octagon, controlled the tempo of the fight. Frankie definitely landed shots too. He was definitely a lot more competitive in the fight than I thought he would be. I thought Pedro would knock him out. But nonetheless, I thought the decision was incorrect, but definitely not a robbery. Last bet, 3 units, Rodriguez Pacquiao fight doesn't go to decision, -230. Definitely my easiest cash of the night. Kind of mad I actually just didn't go heavier. I didn't see how this one was going to go 3 rounds given the defensive liabilities of both and with how hard both guys hit. So it could have been roughly close to like a profit of 5 units if that Munoz bet hit. Unfortunately, second week in a row, I'm getting smoked on my main event bets from what would be a pretty solid profit night. But I mean, that's just kind of the game you play when you play a chalky heavy slate. So it is what it is. On to next week, but I'll take it. That's 8 straight winning UFC events.
All right. How did your week go?
Oh, man, I had a rough one. I had my worst night since early June. I lost 4.5 units, and really this card was like a disaster for me. Like even before it started, like I had a bet on Alonzo Menafield as well, obviously. That got canceled on fight day, and I also play a little bit of DraftKings, and it was the one week where I decided I'm going to make 100 lineups. And of course, I had like 70 lineups with either Alonzo Menafield or OSP in it. So like my lunch break that day was just 1 hour of pure scrambling, trying to fix my DraftKings lineup. So yeah, there was that as well. And then also I had Maria Agapova in a parlay, and the other leg fell through. So I was stuck with a straight bet on her at -800, which is obviously that's an awful fucking look, especially since she lost, man. And yeah, I'm definitely not happy about that one. Never going to bet a 23-year-old low-level woman at -800 ever again. And it's funny, man, because I took the under 1.5 rounds as well. And once it hit that second round and I saw how gassed Agapova was, I'm like, all right, we're fucked. We're not going to win this. Shayna Dobson, please come out here and win this fight in under 1.5 rounds so I can at least cash the under instead of losing on Agapova and the under. At least I can cash the under this way. So what could have been a 7-unit loss ended up only being a 1.5 unit loss there. And then my other bet, I had 3 units on Pedro Munoz to win inside the distance. Basically, man, I mean, Pedro's a hard-hitting guy, and Frankie Edgar, the durability wasn't looking good. The Korean zombie fight was a huge red flag. I thought cutting an extra 10 pounds might have been an extra red flag on his chin, but props to Frankie. His durability held up, and even though I scored that fight for Pedro Munoz, I think Frankie Edgar showed a lot. I think he showed that he can still compete with like the top 15 guys in the bantamweight division. So I thought that was an awesome fight, but yeah, not the best for me. Luckily, I was able to cash on John Salter and Bellator the night before.
Oh, and I fucking bet
good cash.
Yeah, and me and my boy Will Martin, we were able to get on like real early in the week, like -130 range, which was, I mean, that was crazy. And he didn't even open -130. He opened -240. The public moved it to -130, and then obviously over the week it shot back up. So me and him, we moved in at the right time there, and then last night, I cashed on a Colin Huck body. I thought that was just a complete mismatch. He made it look easy for me. So all in all, the last 4 days for me have kind of been like a break even.
Hey, it's better than losing.
Yeah.
I played Capel, and I literally knew on the first entry when he went down that I lost. Like literally immediately. Anyway, we move into this week. It's a mildly entertaining card, but it's unfortunate. I don't think the best card for betting. I had Lamas Hall canceled as a bet. I only have 2 at the moment. We'll see where it goes. And I had Alex Caceres against Chikadze canceled. So, yeah, fun times. But anyway, we forge onward. So, first fight of the night, we got Sean Brady taking on Christian Aguilera. Kelton, I think I saw you had a play here.
Yeah, I sure do, man. I have 2 plays for this card. That's probably just what I'm going to be sticking with. This was my first bet. Easy one for me. I got in the line early, so I'm really high on Sean Brady, guys. And it's weird because I've kind of gone back and forth with him. When he was first coming into the UFC, I really liked what I saw on tape. The guy's really well-rounded. He hits hard. He has a good wrestling base. Obviously, he's undefeated. That's a nice look. And I'm thinking in my mind, oh, my God, he's going to come out here and smash Court McGee. And when he didn't finish Court McGee, it went to a decision. Granted, he won. I don't know. Part of me was kind of let down because I thought it was just going to be a complete smashing. But like in reality, when you look back on it, Court McGee is a super experienced guy he's only been KO'd one time, and it was by Santiago Ponzinibbio. So still, that's a good win in hindsight. And then I actually faded him. I bet on Ismail Nordiev, and I couldn't have been more wrong in that fight. Nordiev, he came out strong in round one like he normally does, and then Brady was able to take over. And man, I know Nordiev is a guy that I believe he left the UFC on his own terms too. I was high on that guy. Like when he first came into the UFC and beat the Tractor Prazeres, who was on like a 9-win streak, I was super impressed with him. I thought the sky was going to be the limit for him. I still think it can be. I guess he's not just UFC ready yet. He is a really young guy, but I give him a lot of credit for that win too. And in my opinion, with Christian Aguilera here, this is like by far his, I don't want to say easiest fight in the UFC, but biggest step down for sure. And I guess I'll give Aguilera credit. He came out in the UFC debut and knocked out Anthony Ivy in the first round, but not much to learn from that fight, man. It was just like he landed one punch and it looked like Anthony Ivy just had never been hit before in his life, which is, I don't know. It was like a really bad look. I don't think he's going to be able to come out here and do some shit like that to Sean Brady. I think really with the boxing, it might even be a mismatch. I think he's the better wrestler, to be honest. I know Aguilera is a brown belt. He is a decent grappler, but I would even give Sean Brady the edge there. I love him in this fight. I don't want to play him at minus 400, but when I saw him to win inside the distance at plus 210, I had to take that. I've seen some real questionable KO losses from Christian Aguilera. So I saw he got knocked out by Matt Sales, which is real interesting because that's a featherweight who arguably could be fighting at bantamweight, but I see Aguilera is getting knocked out at 155. So I'm thinking, hey, maybe his chin's going to be better up here at 170, but I saw the David Machad fight. I don't know if you guys know who David Machad is, kind of a UFC reject, fought in the PFL. He's an all right fighter, but the way he laid out Aguilera in that fight and just followed up with the crucifix ground and pound, like David Machad's never fucking done that to like anybody. Like David Machad's mostly a wrestler. He doesn't drop people on the feet. So I highly question the durability of Christian Aguilera. So I'm going to say Sean Brady comes out here and makes quick work, knocks him out in round one.
Yeah. So I haven't made a play here yet. I'm looking at possibly making me playing the under or playing fight doesn't go the distance, which I think is like minus 112 at the moment. I have kind of like similar feelings about Brady Kelton, except kind of in reverse, to be honest. Like I played Brady against Nardiev, and I actually played him because I thought he was going to come out there and just school him with the boxing, and then his hands were too fast. I was very wrong about that, and then he went and wrestle-fucked Nardiev, which I didn't think was going to ever happen in a million years. But I like Brady generally. I don't really know how high I am on him long-term, just because that division's pretty loaded, and I'm not sure he's kind of got the athleticism to really like climb to the top of it. But in terms of this matchup, it's weird. Like I wouldn't play Brady minus 400. Frankly, on the money line, I think there might even be some value on Aguilera. The problem really is for me is like I actually looked into playing Aguilera, and the only footage we have of him grappling is really putrid, to be honest. And Brady's a black belt. Like he knows what he's doing on the ground. You saw him hold Nardiev down there, which was pretty impressive, especially when you consider that like Tractor Prazeres couldn't hold him down. And so like I kind of think if Brady gets in trouble on the feet or gets caught with something, he can probably get this down and just insta-stub him from there. But, kind of to what Kelton's point is, Aguilera can't really take a punch. He's been KO'd a bunch of times. The sub threat from Brady is pretty high here. And then on the flip side, Aguilera's best path is going to be via KO. So, like, I don't think this goes to a decision, like, a high percentage of the time. I just kind of haven't really decided if I'm going to go in on the under or this play doesn't go to a decision. But, yeah, I think this is going to get finished. My pick's obviously going to be Brady here. Lags, how about you?
Yeah, I got similar thoughts. Not really much to add. I guess I kind of think that this fight also ends inside the distance, and it's probably Brady going to be doing it. But, I mean, in that first round, I think Aguilera is live for that KO, if anything. But other than that, I don't really know how far he's, going to be able to drag this fight out. So I'm similar thoughts with Brady, but I don't think I'm obviously not going to play him in the minus 400 money line. So it's just a pass for me.
Luke, how about you?
So I was thinking about playing the under 2.5 as well, and I ultimately passed. I guess the only reason why, obviously, you guys brought up a lot of good points in terms of the durability questions in terms of Aguilera, but I guess my thing is it's it's trying to figure out how aggressive Aguilera is going to be, because Brady isn't exactly necessarily like this aggressive push forward boxer. He's kind of like this composed, compact guy who's really accurate in his strikes. Obviously does have power. He's got that BJJ black belt, so he can obviously check that chin of Aguilera. But I guess I'm just kind of questioning what his game plan is going to be here, because I feel like if he wants to take this to the ground, he probably can pretty easily. And with that, he could probably just steal rounds via top time. He could pound him out. He could submit him. But honestly, I guess I kind of lean the other way in terms of my breakdown, in terms of like, I was thinking I was going to play the under, but I honestly think this fight will go to decision. There just wasn't enough value on the under 2.5 for me. I actually do think Christian Aguilera survives, and Brady either just kind of wrestle fucks him or just kind of plays that outside game and just kind of picks him apart for 3 rounds. But I definitely don't hate it, because playing that under in that fight doesn't go to decision, or even your bet, Kelton. I don't necessarily think it's a bad one, at least given historics. But there's just something in my mind that just says that it's kind of just this one-sided dominant 30-27 from Sean Brady, so I stayed away.
All right, and so we move on to what was probably the worst fight of the night. We got Polyana Viana taking on Emily Whitmire. Lags, you got anything here?
I got nothing here. Honestly, I can't believe this is basically, like I said, this is kind of like what we talked about, like in the DC Stipe fight, but like this is complete opposite. This is a coin flip for a reason, but these girls are both so trash that it's really hard to really pick one of them. Current line, I think. I know it's getting a little wider on the Whitmire side, but to be honest, I think just Vienna's got a lot of red flags.
Yeah,
her striking offense really isn't that good. She leaves her head all the way up in the air, and I just don't really rate her striking very well at all. Just very loopy, and her wrestling really isn't that great either. It's just kind of like she's missing that wrestling gap between her striking and her grappling game. So I think that as long as Emily can keep this fight standing and keep it, at range, I think she has the advantage here. So I think my pick would be Whitmire decision, but I have no faith in Emily to do that. So it's just a pass for me. It's a low level fight, so I would recommend just a pass to everybody.
We're gonna get.
So this is the first one in my 3 not for me over at MMA Odds Breaker. From a straight perspective, at least in the time of writing, this fight was a pick'em. Now it looks like a ton of monies came in on Whitmire. So I think it's a little interesting there. If Polyana Viana gets to plus 150, I am now intrigued a little bit, because I do think it's a pick'em fight. But I actually do have a play here. I put 1 unit on the fight doesn't go to decision at plus 135. I think it's one of these lines that's kind of just like floating under the radar, and it's just really off just based on sole statistics. I mean, between both girls, their fights don't go to decision almost 72% of the time. So on my bet, I'm almost getting like a 32 or a 30% edge just based on numbers. And then just jumping into the stylistic considerations of the matchup, both girls are defensively flawed on the feet. Both girls are defensively flawed on the ground. Every single fight that Whitmire's lost, she's lost by sub. We've seen Viana sub girls. We've seen Viana get hurt before. We've seen Viana get on top. We've seen Viana pull guard. Like, both these girls are just so back and forth and inconsistent in terms of their game plans. And I know a lot of people are going to talk about here that, Viana's this brown belt BJJ state and world champion or whatever, and Whitmire's only a blue belt. But last time I checked, in Polyana Viana's last fight, she went out and got subbed in less than 2 minutes by Veronica Macedo, and just made a very simple tactical error in defending an armbar, like from a girl, at least on paper, who she should be a better grappler than. So I wouldn't look too heavily into the credentials in terms of BJJ in this fight, because I do think a sub from both girls are live. I think a ground and pound finish from both girls are live. And I think both girls can honestly hurt each other on the feet. It's just one of these back and forth dumpster fire kind of fights where I wouldn't really recommend backing a side at pick'em odds. But it's going to be a lot of action, a lot of questionable fight IQ. The numbers support the play. So when I saw this line, I was shocked and I jumped on it quick.
Right, Kelton, how about you? Any opinion here?
Yeah, I like a lot of what Luke said, man. I kind of like that doesn't go to decision line, because they're both so defensively irresponsible. Like, you can't really be shocked whatsoever if Whitmire comes out here and subs Viana, or you can't really be shocked whatsoever if Viana comes out and subs Whitmire. I mean, it's happened to both of them. Both girls they're sloppy in there. Whitmire's definitely still green. She's only 4-3. That's one edge I'll give Viana. She definitely has the experience advantage at 14 pro fights. So she actually has double the pro fights Whitmire does. It's just when I look at their UFC track records, it's like at least Emily Whitmire is losing to Jillian Robertson and Amanda Ribas, to where Polyana Viana can't even come out here and beat Hannah Cyphers. It's like, damn, dude. And then getting armbarred in 1 minute by Veronica Macedo. It's like, and then her one win. So she's 1-3 in the UFC, with the one win being Maya Stevenson. But like, that doesn't even count. Like, who wouldn't beat Maya Stevenson? So I'm going to go with Emily Whitmire here, but really with no confidence. I'll say second round sub.
Yeah, Emily Whitmire. Once upon a time, I bet Emily Whitmire against a debutante named Amanda Ribas. That was yeah. So I don't know. I'm kind of in Luke's boat here. I think Viana's terrible, and like kind of to your point, Luke, I don't think she's nearly the kind of the submission threat she gets kind of painted as. But at the same time, like I look at this fight, and like I haven't made a play on it yet. And again, like I'm kind of like you, I kind of really want plus 150, but it's a low-level women's bout, right? I don't think anybody's going to dispute that. Whitmire's got 7 career fights. Viana's got 14. Neither is particularly technical at anything. But, at least for her career, Viana's put up some numbers when it comes to striking. She lands and she throws. She outlanded Cyphers at distance. Like, Cyphers isn't elite, but, she's competent. And, she outlanded JJ Aldrich, too. And so it's like one of those things where it's like, I don't think there's really any kind of significant advantage for Whitmire on the feet here. And in the grappling, while I agree Viana's wildly overrated, I'm not sure she's a worse grappler than Whitmire. And so it's like, I'm not saying this with any confidence, but I do kind of think, like, if you're going to play a side, play Viana here. Like, she's generally been the one with the higher output so far in her career. Theoretically, she's the more decorated jiu-jitsu player. But, yeah, I mean, it's a low-level women's MMA fight. It's going to be really high variance. So, like, I'd play the dog. And like you said, if it gets to plus 150, I'd have some interest in Viana there. So hopefully people – yeah.
I'm looking right now on FanDuel. They have how fight ends by submission at plus 220.
That's interesting. That is interesting. Although, yeah, and Whitmire has gotten subs. So there's been a lot of subs between the two of them. So, yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I'm going to look at it closer. I'm hoping people keep pounding Whitmire. I'm not really sure who's actually laying juice to Emily Whitmire. Show yourself if you're in the comment section. But anyway, won't spend too much time on this. So we move on to – does Alex Caceres have an opponent right now? I heard Kevin Kroom pulled out. Okay, so we have Alex Caceres.
So I didn't think Kroom filled out. I thought they couldn't book him is what it was.
Is that what happened? I don't even know.
That's what I thought. I didn't think he pulled out. I thought it was something along the lines that they couldn't book him.
I was too busy throwing my phone through the window this morning when I found out that Giga pulled out. That I really, really like the spot for Caceres there. But anyway, we'll go on to the next fight. This one's actually attracted a lot of betting action, though it's not going to be the most entertaining fight, I think. We have Alessio Di Chirico against Zach Cummings. Luke, I'll start with you. What do you got?
So number 2 fight in my 3 not for me from a betting perspective, at least a straight perspective. I think the line's roughly correct. I think a pick'em is right where it should be here. You got a guy in Di Chirico and Cummings who are relatively low volume strikers. Cummings, obviously, I would give him definitely the edge in terms of like technical boxing, like his counter striking is really on point. But the issue I have with both guys is they just never really step on the gas in any other fights. We've seen it at points from Di Chirico, but we've never seen it like really extensively over the course of 15 minutes for him to get like these really decisive decision victories. I think 2 of his 3 wins are actually by split decision as well. So it's one of those kind of funky spots where I am picking Di Chirico to win because I do think he has the slight edge, at least in terms of volume and power, where if he goes forward, he's going to be able to land and it'll optically look better in the eyes of the judges. But like I said, that counter game of Cummings is on point. Like the shots are going to be there for Cummings. He's going to hit them. But once again, both guys just don't step on the gas. So assuming we're seeing a 15-minute striking affair, which I think we will, I just can't trust either guy to really, I guess, fight for my money if I was to really bet a side here. But I do think Chirico can do just a little bit enough. And I also think, he has shown good wrestling components at certain points. But if he tries to go to the wrestling with Cummings, who's got a really tricky guillotine, I think he's kind of playing with fire by doing that as well. So I think he should probably avoid the grappling at all costs and just step on the gas and throw a little bit more. Because even if he's getting countered, we see it time and time again, judges are scoring people who are throwing more and going forward. So I think this is probably Chirico's fight to lose, to be honest. If he doesn't step on the gas, I wouldn't be surprised if Cummings got a decision here. But this fight just has really greasy split decision written all over it. So unless you were able to get like plus 150 on Chirico, which it obviously never got there, but this is that kind of fight where I would want a 10% edge on my play, because 5% just isn't attractive enough in a fight that I just see being so close. So I'm going Chirico, but I would probably suggest passing on this one.
Kelton, how about you?
Yeah, it's funny, man, because the podcast I did earlier today, I made much more of a compelling, prediction for Alessio Chirico, and then I spent a couple more hours looking into it, and really, the pick'em line, it makes sense, man, but I'm still going to go with Chirico, and if he hits dog money again, like he was plus 120 at one point, I really don't hate the bet there because, Luke mentioned it, both these guys are low volume. I simply think the striking is just going to be really close here, and it might come down to whoever the guy can land the takedowns is, and I kind of think that guy's going to be Chirico, man. He has shot in every single one of his UFC fights except for one. He wasn't able to get any against Muradov last time, but I don't know about you guys, but I'm really high on that guy, Makhmed Muradov. And the fact that, he had a close fight with a guy like that, and even before that, close fight with a guy like Kevin Holland. Of course, Holland, he suffered an injury in that fight, but still the fact that, you land 2 takedowns against Kevin Holland, you make it that close. And, before that, 4 takedowns against Julian Marquez probably sealed him the deal there. But Luke made a good point about the jiu-jitsu. Zach Cummings has, got a really nice darts choke. He's got a good guillotine. So if Chirico wants to take that route, he's definitely got to be real careful. But I don't know. He's 5 years younger. I feel like he's got a little more left to give. That's not to say Zach Cummings is near the end or anything. I slightly lean with the younger fighter here, who I think will have a slight wrestling advantage. Just got to be careful of that sub, man. So I'll go with Chirico 29-28.
Yeah, Cummings might be near the end though. But yeah, again, it's gonna be like a broken record. But yeah, I was interested in Chirico when he was plus money, but I haven't just had the time to tape that fight yet. And so now he's at minus money, and it's weird. I have mixed feelings about Chirico. As a fighter, he seems reasonably talented. He's never really gotten the door outside of getting triangled by Spicely. He's never really gotten the doors blown off him. He should have beaten Velikovic. That was a robbery. He beat Julian Marquez, which was, at the time, Marquez was pretty hyped. That was a pretty impressive win. And then you look at 2 pretty close fights with Holland and Muradov. My problem with Chirico, though, he's got decent wrestling. He's got power. It's that he doesn't throw, and he just doesn't have a killer instinct, man. Round 3 of that Holland fight, I bet him there, and it's 1-1. Holland's injured, and he's just staring at him, and it's what are you doing? Go let your fucking hands go, man. The guy's got one arm, and he just gives the round away and loses the fight. It was so frustrating, and it's the Muradov fight. Again, it's Muradov doesn't throw great volume. He's a good striker, but it's he kind of just, there were a bunch of close rounds, but he kind of let it get away from him because he just didn't do enough. And so it's I do think Chirico has the skills to be minus 200 against Zach Cummings. The problem is we've never actually seen him go out there and actually show those round-winning skills. And it's I'm not going to trust him to suddenly come out there and decide, oh, you know what? If I throw a couple more punches a minute, I might win these fights more convincingly. So I do like him. I think he's going to win this fight, but at minus 115, it's going to be probably a pretty greasy low volume split decision because he just doesn't throw enough. Maybe he will elevate it this time, but I can't trust that till I see it. Lex, how about you? So
I'm actually contrarian here. I actually like Cummings in the spot here, but I'm not really, like you said, I'm not really interested to bet it. I think it's kind of a dumpster fire from a size perspective. But I just kind of think that at the end of the day that Cummings is going to have the more output on the feet, even though they are both low output. I think that he's going to have more in the tank, and he has a better cardio, in my opinion, in those later rounds. And like you touched on, if he gets taken down at all, he's got a sick guillotine. I think you could easily sink that in when Chirico gasses in the third round. So my pick was Cummings' decision here. I know it's sitting like plus 175. I was just looking at that, which is tempting, but ultimately it's a pass, similar to the Viana fight. It's a pick 'em, similarly close line for a reason. So just a pass, but I like Cummings here.
All right, so we move on, and we got Mallory Martin, Hannah Cyphers. Lags, do you have a play here? I know Luke does.
No.
Okay.
I'll be honest. I'll be honest. I didn't really look much into this fight just because I don't really like the quick turnaround for Hannah Cyphers here. But at the same time, I really don't rate Mallory as high as minus 330 in this spot. Right. So I think it's a pass for me unless Hannah hits about plus 300, then I'd probably get in on it. But same kind of thing. I think it's a low-level women's MMA fight, so pass.
Luke, how about you? I know you have a player.
Yeah, so similar to Lags, this was a fight I was kind of like just looking at the straight line, and I was like, well, obviously I'm not paying this price on Mallory Martin, and I'm not taking the dog shot on Hannah Cyphers, but then I saw what the under was, and the under is sitting at plus 220 or plus 230. And I'm like, this is absolutely crazy to me. Just given the stylistics of the fight. I mean, we can sit there and argue about, how high level Mallory Martin is or what her ceiling is or whatnot. Obviously, she's only got 9 pro fights, still a relatively young girl. I think only like 26 or whatnot. But from a stylistic perspective, this girl is a terrible matchup for Hannah Cyphers, at least historically. In literally every single one of her fights, she comes forward, she lands takedowns, and one key component I want to note here is when she's getting these takedowns, she's either landing in half guard or side control. She's never in the guard of girls. She does a good job of switching their hips on these takedowns to get in moderately dominant positions. She's shown good passing ability. From there, she'll either land like peppering elbows to either step over to mount and ultimately end up working her sub game or getting into those dominant positions to land good ground and pound. So what have we seen from Hannah Cyphers historically? When she's getting taken down, she really hasn't had much answer there. And I guess to play somewhat contrarian to myself, she has shown components in certain fights where she's been able to stuff takedowns early, most notably the Macy Barber fight and the, what's her name? The Invicta girl, Keith Jardine's wife, Escobar. She showed decent takedown defense early in those fights, but like it's kind of like the pressure of the girls have ultimately, her footwork kind of slows down and those takedowns start to become easier. And when she's there, I don't want to say she doesn't have a concept of what to do there, but literally through watching the tape and the number crunching, she's only gotten back to her feet once when she's been taken down of her own volition. Either the ref has stood them up or she's gotten finished. Like, to me, that's crazy. Like, in terms of, like, I'm not saying run to the window to bet Mallory Martin here, but it's like, I can at least reasonably assume in the tape that I've seen that Mallory Martin's going to attempt takedowns in high volume, has a decent double leg, but is really good, at least in terms of her core competency of takedowns. Her trips from the body lock, like I said, she ends in these dominant positions. She's good at stepping over. And that we've seen from Hannah Cyphers on her back, she's either getting submitted or absolutely smashed. So to me, when I saw plus 220 and people are like, oh, well, why don't you just bet Martin inside the distance? It's like, well, her inside the distance is like plus 250. It's like, I'll take the little less than like 30% there for the random occasion that Hannah Cyphers lands some Hail Mary or something. But like, yeah, plus 220 is just crazy to me in something, or I should say in a fighter who's an absolutely terrible stylistic matchup for Hannah Cyphers. This is a bet that I'm willing to lose all day.
Yeah, fair. Carlton, how about you?
Yeah, I don't mind that bet at all because, I mean, when you look at it, Hannah Cyphers has been finished in the UFC in under 2.5 rounds, 4 times? Macy Barber, Angela Hill, Mackenzie Dern, Agapova. So, I mean, yeah, I don't think it's crazy at all to think Mallory Martin is just going to be able to, take her down, ground and pound, sub. And that's what I think happens, man. I mean, it's pretty clear by now Hannah Cyphers is just she's a little too small for this division, man. She's a 105er. Granted, I mean, she's muscular. She's trying to put on that weight, and I've seen her rip to the body real hard. Like, she has these nice little punches. It's just they don't take too much of an effect on these real straw weights. And I think even if she is able to stuff the first couple takedowns here from Mallory Martin, I think Mallory Martin can take her best shot, and she might not get the first, second, or third takedown, but I think she'll get the eventual fourth, and that might be all it takes, man. I'm pretty impressed with this girl, especially, I mean, tall task for your UFC debut against Viana Jandiroba. I mean, and not only that, I mean, she lasted longer in that fight than fucking Felice Herrick did. So, and Macy didn't look awful in there. It didn't look like some complete mismatch. I mean, there was points in there like, oh, she almost reversed and got on top. Oh, she almost got up. Like, you can see raw potential in this girl. I mean, obviously, 6-3? She's not even at 10 pro fights yet. So I think this is the perfect kind of matchup to build up an unexperienced girl like Mallory Martin. So I'll say she gets a second round sub.
Yeah, so I'm going to go a bit contrarian here. Like, I'm not betting it. Don't get me wrong. It's another one of those fights where I feel like there may be some value on the dog, but I don't think it's really enough to warrant a bet because of obviously the obvious concerns in the grappling that we've heard mentioned already. My issue is, so I actually was looking at the bet Luke made, and I was looking at potentially playing Martin ITD. The problem that I have is if you look at Martin's takedowns, the vast majority come from the body lock. Now, if she decides that she's just going to shoot at Cyphers' leg, she's probably going to get her down at will and maul her. I am not convinced that she's going to get takedowns from the body lock easily here, though. Cyphers is decent in the clinch. She's pretty strong there. And in addition to that, the other concern I have is if you look – now, take it with a grain of salt because, again, those contenders and those fights are really wonky. But Martin's contender series fight, now she lands a bunch of takedowns in that fight, but she spends a large portion of it on the feet kind of – I don't know, looking to test her striking or what she was doing. But she was getting lit up pretty good standing there. And so I have this fear with Martin that she might try to do something like that, and then maybe it turns into one of these weird fights where it's like 2.5, 3 minutes of her doing that, getting hit by Cyphers. Then she spends 2 minutes on top. We're like, well, how the fuck do we score this round? Do we just prioritize the last 2 minutes? So I don't know. The fight just feels sketchy to me. Like, everything in my head is like, okay, Martin has all the tools here to look like minus 900 in this spot, but I don't totally trust her. I don't know. It's really weird. I know it's not really great reasoning, to be honest. I just have kind of like a weird, wonky feeling about it. And I don't know, like Luke, to your point, like Cyphers has looked real bad on her back, but in her last fight, the first time she got taken down by Dern, she immediately, shrimped to an underhook and got up. Now, do I think she's going to do that and just pop back up against Martin? Probably not, but it did seem to indicate that maybe she's actually making, some minor improvements there. I don't really know. So, I mean, it's a pass for me. Yeah, it's a pass for me. I'm not gonna go further into it. But I will root for you, Luke, obviously. So we move on, and another little fun one here. We got Impa Casaganai against Maki Pitolo. Kelton, I believe you have a play here. What do you got?
Yeah, I sure do have a play here, man. I just moved in on it a few hours ago. Like the spot, man. So, I mean, firstly, I think this is definitely one of the best fights on the card. I'm high on Impa Casaganai as a prospect. I think Maki Pitolo, maybe surely, but slowly, he might be getting a little better. I think the move up to middleweight is definitely a nice little move for him, but still, man, I mean, so he comes in to the UFC against Callan Potter. What was he, like a minus 3,400 fight or minus 3,400 favorite there? And obviously, gets tired, gets teed off on, gets taken down, passed, like completely destroyed by Callan Potter. And I guess in hindsight, that can be forgiven. That probably wasn't the right weight class for him. So he comes up to 185, fights Charles Byrd, and it's kind of not looking good in the first round. He gets taken down. He gets some good shots landed on him, but then that second round, Charles Byrd definitely starts to slow down. He was finished, and he retired shortly after. So, all right, you beat a retired fighter, and then gets the next fight against Darren Stewart, which, yeah, I mean, Darren Stewart's definitely a dangerous fighter. He has some good wins inside of the UFC, but the guy was coming off against a welterweight inside of Cage Warriors, which, I mean, that's not a good look at all. So Fight starts. Magny looks all right. I mean, the striking was close. They both landed the same amount of strikes, actually. And then Magny looks like he's going to go for a takedown. And we're like, yes, this is what he should be doing. And then, obviously, he gets caught in a choke. So it's like, man, if you have one embarrassing loss in the UFC, that can be forgiven, in my opinion. But once you start to rack up two, in my opinion, embarrassing losses, it's like, I start to question these things. And then on the other side, you got Impa Casaganai, who, yeah, he's only 7-0. He's definitely, he might still be a little green. He's got a little bit of a way to go, and this is surely a big step up for him. But what I saw between his first Contender Series fight and his second Contender Series fight, I saw, maturity, man. And I thought that was a real, mature performance from Impa. That first round started and the other guy was, he was landing some good strikes. That was a razor close first round. And then, Impa's the way fresher guy in round two. He goes to the wrestling. He takes this guy down and he grapples the shit out of this guy. I mean, that third round was a 10-8, if we're being honest. So real strong, dominant win there from Impa. Gets the UFC call rightfully. And I think the UFC likes this guy because, I mean, why else would they book Magny Pitolo so quickly after taking a bad loss? In my opinion, the UFC is coming out here to try to get Impa Casaganai a win. Now, it's definitely not the easiest fight in the world. Magny Pitolo has advantages in this fight. I spoke about the experience for sure. If this fight stays on the feet standing, I think Magny can give him problems. He's got power in his hands. He does have good boxing. It's just, I see Impa wearing on him. I see Impa imposing his will, pushing him up against the cage, landing takedowns. This guy has real good takedowns, man. I mean, he's got the body lock takedowns. I've seen him double leg dudes. His work over there with my boy John Salter is definitely paying off because this guy is becoming a real solid grappler. He's super strong too. I mean, we know that the genetics of these Nigerian fighters are, something else. So yeah, I think he's just going to be able to come out here. The first round might be scary. Magny Pitolo might even win the first round, but as it goes, I like Impa's fight IQ. I love how well-trained of a fighter he is. He knows what he needs to do. I think he comes out here and, I'm not going to say styles, but dominates cleanly in that second and third round with the wrestling. So I got 4 units on him. I took -125. I know he opened at -170. So I like my line.
All right, thanks, Kelton. And so it's another one where I'm kind of kicking myself for not taping it a bit earlier because I actually kind of like Maki on the other side. Like, I don't think I can play him right now at the +105. But so let me preface by saying, like, I actually do like Impa and I like his ceiling. Like, one of the first things I look for in a fighter is, do they have cardio? Are they active? Do they throw a lot? Do they attempt takedowns? He checks all those boxes and he seems pretty durable. And that's all great. I also, though, sort of think – like, I think that you touched on it a bit, Kelton. Like, he's pretty green. Like, I said the night he fought on Contenders, I'm like, they should probably let him fight 2 or 3 more fights out of promotion before they bring him in, just so he brings it on. Now, I don't think super highly of Maki, to be clear, like, at all. But, one of the things we saw in that Contender Series fight with Anthony Adams is Adams was landing real clean in the pocket early on Impa. Now, he eventually gassed, and I think that's very in play here. But Pitolo's probably throws the crispest combinations of anybody's Impa's fought to date. Works the body more so than anybody has, and Impa tends to keep that high guard. And then in terms of the grappling, like, yeah, I'd say Impa's probably the better grappler, but he doesn't really pass that much. And so I kind of think at least early, while Maki's got gas in the tank, he could probably work up pretty consistently. So, like, I look at it, it's like, do you think talent-wise, Maki is the Impa is the far more talented fighter with the higher upside? I just question kind of where he's at right now. Like, if you look at the guys he's been fighting, none of them are really on Pitolo's level. Adams may be close technically, but Adams doesn't really have much power. He only has 1 finish in his career. And so it's just like, it's really more for me a question of, we don't really know how Imp is going to react. The first time he gets in there with somebody who actually is going to work the body hard, who's going to throw output, who's going to tag him hard in the pocket. It's possible he walks through it, grinds him out, and finishes him late, or, I just honestly just dominates the grappling. I'm just not totally convinced of it. I kind of see it as a 50-50. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, Impa could come out and look like -250. Like, that wouldn't really completely blow me away if he did that. But on the other hand, I think there's a scenario where Magny comes out here and just completely puts it on him, and it's like, oh yeah, Impa is still pretty green. So yeah, no play as of yet. Like, I don't think I'll play this unless it crosses like plus 135. But I do think there's a slight bit of value on Magny at the moment. Lags, do you have any opinion here?
So I got similar opinions to Kelton here. That I pretty much think that early on in the fight it's going to be Pitolo, and then second and third round Impa is going to be able to take over for the wrestling. But I don't know. Similar thoughts kind of to everybody, I guess, that I kind of question the what's up, Quinn? Kind of got the I question the durability of Magny and why he's taking this fight on such a quick, short notice, like we talked about. So I really don't think he's making a lot of improvements and training a ton for this fight. So I don't know. I kind of lean Impa here, but like we touched on, he's super green. So I don't really I don't know. It's hard for me to trust debutantes after what happens in the past. So it's just a pass for me. But I like Impa here in this spot. I think Magny's kind of a fraud, to be honest.
Luke, how about you?
So I actually had a bet on Anthony Adams over Impa on the Contender Series. Largely my reasoning was, assuming he had 3 rounds of gas, I thought he was the more technical striker. If he just kind of kept space, kept jabbing his face, the nice 1-2, he would have kind of been able to just dance around him. He actually did win the first round on all 3 judges' scorecards there, and then kind of just gassed. And I'm not taking anything away from the Impa performance there, because I think he did show really good composure and good fight IQ to go to the wrestling, because that was clearly what his path to victory there was. So I'm not taking anything away from that. And I actually do think the guy has a decent ceiling. He's got a ton of athletic tools. I think he was a Division II collegiate linebacker in football or something like that. And he's only been, doing this for 4 years now. So like I said, I think the guy definitely his big core competency here is his athleticism. That's not to say that he doesn't have skills, but I think his boxing's decent. He obviously has that wrestling component, but I guess the thing with me is there's nothing that overtly stands out about his game. And then moving to Pitolo, he's a guy I'm extremely low on. I have been for a long time. I don't think he's a UFC caliber fighter. The only reason I think he'll ever stay around in the UFC for any sort of extended amount of time is because of his style. But then again, most recently in that Darren Stewart fight, he actually showed like completely different Magny quote unquote fight IQ and actually was doing the right things and circling on the outside and not engaging in the big pocket brawls and trying to fight smart and not fighting that firefight. He obviously ended up getting choked out and it didn't matter, but I was like, yes, Magny, you're showing a little bit of fight IQ. Not yes for my bet, because I bet the under 2.5, thank God, in that cash. But I was like, at least the guy's showing, a little bit of nice fight IQ. So I guess my big thing in this fight is I'm really curious to see how Impa approaches it, because in my opinion, I think he should just really go wrestle grapple heavy here. I think that's his pretty much easiest path to victory. I'm not saying that he can't strike with Magny, but I feel like it's one of those things. So just take the path to least resistance and look to wrestle grapple. I think he can just largely control and just wear on him over the course of 3 rounds. But if he does kind of sit there and stand in the early rounds, Magny is dangerous, assuming he lets his hands go. But I will say this, I don't think a patient Magny that we saw in that Darren Stewart fight is what's going to win him this fight. We need old school crazy Magny here to go at Impa Casaganai and see how he handles that pressure. Whether we see that, I have no idea. With that, I have so many question marks on this fight. I really don't know. I am picking Impa. I think he has the higher ceiling. I think we see Magny get his walking papers relatively soon, but no bet for me.
All right, yeah, it's gonna be a fun fight, and it will bring us right into the main card where we actually it's gonna be a pretty entertaining slate, I think. But again, I'm not sure how much value is there. Lags, we'll start with you on this one. This is the 4th time it's been booked. We have Magomed Ankalaev and Kutilaba 2.
So similar to what we touched on a little bit before we went live here. I had Ankalaev in that first rendition of the fight, and I was like, oh, well, I guess I'll take the cash. I mean, I thought that Ankalaev was looking good, and I thought that he was getting hurt by some of the shots, whether he was selling it or not. I don't know. I don't think it was a smart game plan. But I don't know. It's kind of the rematch we never really knew we needed, I guess. I mean, I'm I'm intrigued to see this fight, but from a bet perspective, the line's kind of getting wider every single time this fight's happened. It was minus 220 when it was first booked, then it was minus 300. Now he's sitting near like minus 400. So, honestly, I think this is Ankalaev's fight to lose. I don't really rate Kutilaba very highly. I think he's got about a round in him. He's got solid output, but doesn't really have cardio. And once that cardio is gone, or your skills are gone there, in my opinion. So, I like Ankalaev. I know we touched on it a little bit before we went live. Ankalaev in round one or two is plus 105, and that intrigues me a lot. I really don't see how this fight goes the distance. So, yeah, that would be my lean as of right now, but I haven't pulled any action on this fight yet.
Luke, how about you?
Yeah, no strong opinion here. In the first iteration of this matchup, Ankalaev got down to minus 190, and that was very, very intriguing to me. I didn't pull the trigger on it. Kind of pissed now, but yeah, like as Lags touched on, now he's sitting minus 330. I don't think there's any value on Ankalaev. If anything, gun to your head, if you are to bet this fight straight, I think the value's on Kutilaba. But I would also say to Lags' point as well, I don't see him outworking a guy like Ankalaev over the course of 3 rounds. So if you are to play this fight, I think the Kutilaba KO prop is probably the way to go. Not advocating it necessarily, but like I said, gun to your head, I think that's probably the bet for this fight. The fight doesn't go to decision. It's gotten bet down a little bit, but through some of the number crunching, there still isn't a big enough edge. You would have to get like closer to like minus 250, minus 240 for me to really fire a big bet there. I just don't think there's a big enough edge. I just think Ankalaev is the much better fighter. He's more technical, but Kutilaba is a guy who's going to come forward and just throw heat. And we've seen Ankalaev actually hurt a couple times. The guy's names escape me, but in a couple of his UFC fights, we've seen him hurt and dropped a couple times. So if he doesn't mind his P's and Q's here, I really don't think a Kutilaba KO is out of the question. It's just, once again, how often does that happen, and how do you cap that? So I think Ankalaev should roll, as I think he is the better fighter. If he fights more technical, fights more smart, doesn't engage in the big firefight with Kutilaba, he wins this fight at a very decent clip. But I just want to throw one more quick note in there too. Like, these guys do not like each other at all.
Yeah.
Like, you saw the stare down in that first fight. Kutilaba walked all the way across the cage. There was the controversy at the end of the fight. Ankalaev is flipping off the crowd. So I don't know if you can necessarily trust Magomed Ankalaev to necessarily fight a smart fight here. So
I agree.
I think it throws a little interesting wrinkle into this. So yeah, if you want to target some violence props, I'd say this is the fight to do so.
I would touch. Oh, sorry, touch real quick, I guess, Luke. The prop sitting on FanDuel right now, the fight ending in KO is minus 210. I don't know if I really see a sub from Ankalaev here being live.
That's way too chalky for an MOB prop for me, but yeah, it's probably likely though.
Cal, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, and if you like Ion Kutilaba wins in round 1 is plus 600, and if he wins, he's probably going to be in round 1. So, I mean, I don't hate like a fucking lunch money bet or anything like that. But when it comes to this fight, man, I think it's lined pretty accurately. I mean, I was with Lags. I had Ankalaev in that first fight. It was real nice for the ref to give us that one a little bit early. I mean, we all knew it was going to happen anyway. It's so weird, man, because like I see people like so strongly on one side, like Ion wasn't hurt, Ion was just baiting him in, blah blah blah, and then I see some people like, oh, Ankalaev just came out and destroyed him. I mean, it's somewhere in the middle. In my opinion,
I thought it was somewhere in the middle, to be honest.
Yeah, Ion was definitely rocked, like he was hurt, but it was a bad stoppage for sure. But yeah. I mean, it looked like we pretty much knew where that was going anyway. It's funny, man, the way he was just spamming those head kicks at Ion Kutilaba, and like half of them were missing, and like he still stops the fight. Bad stoppage, but it looked to me like if these guys go out there and strike for a few minutes, I mean, Ankalaev is just going to be the one countering him, landing the bigger shots, in my opinion. And as the fight goes on, we all know Ion, he slows down, and that power doesn't, it's not quite as scary later in the fight. I know y'all might remember when Ion fought against Jared Cannonier, and it was so deep into that fight, Jared Cannonier just walked forward with his hands down, showed absolutely zero respect to Ion Kutilaba. I mean, it got to that point, and Cannonier realized, like, oh, this guy's got nothing left. I'm just going to fuck with him. And that's what happened. Wouldn't recommend Ankalaev do anything like that, but I think we're talking about a difference in levels here. To me, Eon is like a guy that is slightly outside the top 15. And then Ankalaev, man, I mean, there's definitely questions like, you know, if you go out there and tap to Paul Craig with 3 seconds left in a fight, like that's definitely worrisome. But credit to him, he hasn't lost since. He's been performing really well. That knockout against Dolce, that was one of the sickest fucking things I've ever seen. Great kick. So I like this guy. I think he has like top 5 potential, like honestly. So I'm going to go with him. I'll say he knocks Eon out in the second round this time.
So, like, are we sure the Craig fight wasn't a fix? like you just touched on it, but like when I was taping this, I'm watching it. It's like I swear he's got a lot put it on him soon, right? He doesn't literally lock it in till like 4 seconds left. Like I don't.
It must have been like so tight that like he couldn't. Like it must have just like put him out instantly.
Tough Dagestani fuckers just tap immediately, like after the 10-second clock had already run. Like I don't know, man. It's one of the weirdest endings to a fight I've ever seen.
Some of that Dagestani mafia money, bro.
But anyway, so like you touched on it, Lags. So we saw this go, and so did Julie. This got down to like minus 190 last time, and I kind of am wondering because if you guys recall, because I also had money on Ankalaev the first time, I got him I think at minus 255, and then the line started dropping like late in the week, and then it really
I had 220. I think it was 220 or somewhere around that ballpark.
Right, and the money kept coming in the entire time. And so, like, I'm wondering, are we like somebody was moving that line? It's not like it was UFC Norfolk, not like a high volume card where you were going to get like, you know, a bunch of big fish in Vegas dumping hundreds of thousands of dollars onto a dog. So, like, I'm wondering maybe we'll get that same kind of movement this time, and someone will just bang the Kutilaba line late in the week. So I'm kind of like waiting to see maybe that happens, and maybe like this gets moved down to below minus 250. I don't know if it will. But just like it seemed like an odd card for that kind of movement to happen unless somebody was driving it. And if that's the case, why aren't they going to push it again too? But anyway, yeah, I mean, mostly I agree with basically everything you guys said. Ankalaev is certainly more skilled. If Kutilaba had 3 rounds of cardio, I'd probably play him just on output alone here. But alas, we all know Kutilaba's MO here. You know, you never forget the Glover fight where it looked like Glover might get killed in the ring in the first round, and then all of a sudden he's just on top, raining down hell on him in the second round. So, yeah, I'm not gonna pass. I'll put it that way. I throw a bunch of shit at the wall every week when it comes to props, so I'm sure I'll find a bunch of violence props, like Luke said. But I don't really love anything on the money line. I think Kelton's spot on. Like, if you like Coop, just play round 1 KO. Like, that's probably just round 1. That's makes the most sense because if Kutilaba actually comes out here and wins the decision or wins past round 1, then something's gone drastically wrong, and there's no way you could have possibly prepared for it. Seriously, like there's
I agree. No, I agree. It's just funny because it's basically that binary. It should be at least.
If anybody wants to tweet this right now, just tweet my name with this and with the Kutilaba next to it. If Kutilaba lands 80 plus significant strikes this fight, I will give that person $300. Like that's it. Just anybody tweet it. Not every person, but one person who does that. But that's but yeah, there's your giveaway for the week. I'll tweet it out after. I am not confident that Kutilaba is not going to go out there and have that kind of gas in him. And if he is, well, someone's going to get $300. So anyway, we move on. We got Ricardo Lamas taking on Bill Algeo. This is another bet that was canceled for me. I actually played Lamas pretty decent sized against Hall here. Unfortunate. But anyway, Luke, we'll start with you here. What do you got?
Yeah, so similar to you, John, I played Lamas over Hall as well. Obviously, that fell out. I might be on a bit of an island here. I definitely didn't bet this fight, but I do think this Algeo guy can actually make this fight a lot more competitive than the odds indicate. Guy in Lamas, obviously, he's fought the exponentially better competition. He's been in the UFC for over a decade, but we have seen him kind of take a little bit of that decline in recent years. He's taken some vicious KOs to Calvin Kattar, Josh Emmett. And, you know, I think the one thing I don't want to say I'm banking on, but I'm kind of hoping on just from like a general fan perspective is that we see this Algeo guy be able to push a 15-minute pace, because I do think that assuming this fight wasn't on short notice and I knew I could trust this guy's gas tank, I'd honestly be taking a shot on Algeo at like plus 250, because if you look at Lamas historically, once again, I know he's fighting the exponentially better guys. He's fighting top 10 guys. I get it. Trust me, I do. But he's a guy who just is not an overtly high output guy. He only lands about 2.5 significant strikes per minute. He's not overtly accurate in shots. I do think his striking is decent, at least in terms of his boxing. The guy does have some power, but once again, he's not a guy who's necessarily overtly aggressive in terms of going forward, and he'll kind of engage these guys in these big pocket exchanges. And it's found him knocked out in 4 of his 6 UFC fights as well. So, and then the guy has a D2 collegiate wrestling background, but he only stuffs takedowns at 47%. So I think in this guy in Algeo, it might be one of these situations where I think he can really make this fight play a lot closer than odds indicate. If he goes forward, kind of throws that leg kick, that teep out. I know people are going to fucking kill me for this, but I kind of compared him a little bit to Shane Burgos, at least in terms of his movement, not in terms of skill set, but he kind of leans his head forward, keeps his shoulders forward, throws those kicks out, kind of does the bob and weave type thing. Like, he's going to go forward. And I think it does look optically good in the eyes of the judges, and a guy in Lamas who's consistently proven to take the back foot. So assuming Algeo can sit there and come forward for 15 minutes, not get starched, not get taken down, not get Russell not get submitted, I think, he can make this fight a lot closer. But once again, with this whole COVID situation, we got a guy coming in on short notice, definitely not willing to lay any sort of money on that type of situation. But I do think Algeo can make this a little bit more competitive than a lot of people are thinking.
Yeah, I don't disagree. What do you think, Calvin?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think just obviously based off resume, the fact that he's been in like the top 15 of the featherweight division for, probably since it started, like featherweight was first brought into the UFC. Lamas is that guy. Obviously amazing wins on his record. One does not simply go out and submit Charles do Bronx Oliveira. The skill set of Lamas is there. The experience is there. It's just kind of hard to cap that. Like, you got to think that Lamas should be the favorite. It's just kind of hard to cap how big of a favorite he should be, because it just really all depends on how far gone the guy is. Obviously the performances aren't up to par as much as they used to be. He's getting knocked out badly. He's been getting knocked out badly for a long time too. Like, even when he was in his prime against Chad Mendes, that was a really bad one. And you got to question the chin. Like Luke mentioned, you got to question the volume as well. Like, I don't know. Like, I can't say I'd be completely shocked if Algeo lands some random knee and puts this guy down or slightly out volumes him. Like, that wouldn't shock me. But, I just feel like I have to pick Lamas here. I feel like he's going to take down Algeo and probably sub him, even on the feet. Lamas can crack. His last really, really good win where he was able to just go out and destroy a guy, that was against Jason Knight 3 years ago. I know Knight was kind of a hot prospect going into that fight, and Lamas came out and completely destroyed the dude. And if he can put on a kind of performance like that, I think he can shut down a guy in Bill Algeo, who, in my opinion, isn't really even close to his skill level. Just depends how far gone this guy is, and inactivity too. He's only had 4 fights since the Knight fight, and that was over 3 years ago. So yeah, I'll go with Lamas, but it's a pass fight. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I agree mostly. So pretty much, I think Ricardo Lamas is probably the more skilled fighter everywhere here. The issue, you guys just touched on it, is he's 38. And, the last time we saw him, he was getting brutally knocked out by Calvin Kattar. I played him against Hall primarily because I just didn't think, Hall was a real knockout threat or could really hurt him or take advantage of any kind of decline in his speed. Whereas, Algeo, I don't think he's as skilled anywhere, but, he's tough. He will go forward. And like Luke said, he'll spam volume and, possibly enough that, if Lamas' chin is cracked, and even if it's not, if he just doesn't kind of, have it anymore, he could, steal this fight. All of that said, to Luke's point, I'm not really looking to play a guy who has to cut weight in 3 days and take this fight. I think the line's probably wide, but Yeah, there's just too many unknowns, and it's like it's one of those things where, you don't know what kind of shape Algeo's in. I don't want to see Friday him get on the scale and be the featherweight Jake Collier or something along those lines. Like, we've just seen too much bullshit during COVID for that to happen. Like, if this was 2 weeks out, it would be a pretty intriguing dog play for me. But I don't see it. I think Lamas probably wins a somewhat convincing decision. Maybe gets a late finish. But yeah, I can't blame anybody for taking a stab. I just kind of think we don't know for a fact that Lamas is done, and so I don't really want to gamble out on a guy taking the fight on short notice. Legs, how about you?
Yeah, similar thoughts to you guys pretty much. Lamas hasn't been in the cage for over a year, and that trusted him currently at minus 250 over this late replacement. I don't know. It's not really a good look, I think, in my opinion. I think, like Kelvin said, I think it's just a pass fight and skip over it.
Agreed. All right, so we move on to the next fight of the evening. And we have got – hold on, sorry, guys. I am on the wrong fight right now. We have got Jian Kim against Alexa Grasso. I'll start here because this is my first bet of the night. I actually bet Jian Kim for a unit at plus 260 here. Pretty much thinking is – I mean, if you look at both girls, they're both pretty high volume. Grasso has been a little bit more of an efficient striker throughout her career to date. But if you actually kind of look at Grasso and look at her fights, obviously she looked like $1 million the Carolina fight. There's no taking that away from her. But Carolina really just hasn't been the same fighter in recent years. Or maybe she just never was that fighter. I don't really know. It's also possible that she just fought a bunch of bums before Joanna and Rose just wasn't Rose yet. But either way, that fight, you just basically, whenever she'd jump into the pocket, she'd hit Carolina a couple times, and Carolina would basically reset without returning much. But it was impressive. I'm not taking that away from her. But you watch these fights, and when Grasso tends to blitz in, she is right there to be hit. You've seen it multiple times throughout her career. We saw Herrig tag her basically at will every time she entered the pocket. And while I think she's cleaned up her movement a bit, a lot of those same bad tendencies are kind of still there. If you actually watch her fight with Esparza, obviously she won the distance striking war. But Esparza landed nearly 50% of her strike attempts in that fight. That's considering Esparza is pretty much a midget. That's like pretty disconcerting. And then on the other side, you have Kim, who's, she's 2 inches taller. She's got a massive 7-inch reach advantage here. And Kim, I don't think she's the best striker we've ever seen, but she hits pretty hard for WMMA, and she throws a lot of output similar to Grasso. And unlike, Carolina and much of the fighters that Grasso's faced, she loves to stand in the pocket when people dive in there and return the counter and throw combinations off of it. I think Grasso's got a pretty significant speed edge here, but she, like I said, she's there to be hit, and she's going to get clipped in this fight. And so I kind of view it as it's a pretty high variance fight. It's going to be high volume, and Grasso's going up a weight class. She's giving away reach. She's probably not the harder hitter here, whereas Kim's fought up at 135 before, probably is the harder hitter. And so it's like I'd make Grasso the favorite just because I do think she's a bit more skilled and she has that speed advantage. But in a fight like this, where both girls are going to probably land a ton of strikes, and there's a chance, Kim's going to be landing the harder ones, and just the optics are going to look good, or it's just a chance it looks like a coin flip. Because honestly, these WMA striking fights where the finishing potential is fairly low, like I believe it is here, are just inherently high variance. And so yeah, like I said, I lean Grasso slightly, but I don't think I'd make him worse than 40% here. So yeah, I'm taking a 1-unit shot at the plus 260. Lex, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think you pretty much touched it. I think it's just going to be a high variance striking contest. But I think the only thing that I would give the Grasso the edge in the striking contest is that she actually uses her legs when she actually kicks her opponents, whereas Kim really only throws her hands, really. So I don't know. I think honestly, you have the value side here. I think other than Grasso decision would be the other lean in my opinion. But no, I think it's just going to be a high variance striking fight. That I don't know. I don't really want anything near, to be honest. So I don't know how people are playing her at minus 300, to be honest. Just my take.
Luke, how about you?
Yeah, so I'm kind of torn on this one as well. We've been going back and forth on this one in the group chat for 2 weeks now. Even pre-tape, before I jumped in this, I'm betting Jian Kim here. I was almost 100% positive I was going to. And I jumped into tape, and kind of what I remembered from her, I thought she was a little bit more high output than she actually is. I'm not saying she's not high output, but I thought that she would kind of return a little bit more on strikes better. She kind of just girls tend to kind of lead the dance on her, and then she just returns strikes. She's accurate, has power, and lands with them. And so I really want to bet her at this price, but I'm also kind of torn because I think this Alexa Grasso around like the 60% indication line has a ton of value too. So I'm honestly torn between both bets because I honestly think both have quite a bit of value. And in my big thing with Grasso is kind of Lags touched on, she mixes up her striking attack. Not that judges have historically scored leg kicks, obviously not, given Frankie Edgar, Pedro Munoz, but literally I just feel like she's going to be the busier girl, whether even she's landing the harder shots or not. I feel like she's going to just be leading the dance on the exchanges, and Kim's kind of just going to be following her, where even though I think Kim will be landing, unless she like hurts her or does like something overtly significant in the fight, I feel like the judges are going to give the nod to Grasso. And with that being said, I think this minus 300 line is way, way too wide. But with that Grasso decision line, it's interesting because if you go back and look at Alexa Grasso, the chick has never finished one girl in her entire career. And Jian Kim has proven to be extremely durable. So to me, it's just kind of like, I was even thinking about a hedge, but there wasn't a ton of value in that. So to me, I'm really going to end up falling on the side here. It's either Kim straight at these big dog odds or Grasso by decision. I just think Grasso outworks her. But as you touched on, John, she's also stepping up a weight class. She's fighting a girl who's got a 7-inch reach advantage, who is shown to hit relatively hard. So how does Alexa Grasso deal with that? I mean, we've seen her hit and tagged by at least lesser quote unquote powerful girls that are smaller at a smaller weight class. So there is a little bit of variance into this as well, which has to be taken into consideration. But I don't hate the bet at all, and I haven't pulled the trigger on either yet. But I'm still torn.
Man, this is an interesting one. I don't know about this minus 320 line on Alexa Grasso. Now, obviously, you watch the tape, Alexa Grasso, she performed pretty well against some good fighters. And then on the Jian Kim side, it's like, I don't know. I just expect more from this girl when she fights. And split decision against Justine Quiche, split decision against Melinda Fabian, who's not even in the UFC anymore. Not a good fighter. I mean, clearly lost to the not as good Shevchenko sister, and then did exactly what she was supposed to do in her last fight when she fought, the worst girl in the division in Nadia Kassem. But man, a couple of you guys touched on it, and I find it so interesting. Jian Kim has a 72-inch reach. That is the longest in the division. That reach is longer than Germaine de Randamie's reach. That reach is longer than Amanda Nunes's reach. And she's fighting at 125 pounds. Not only that, when the UFC first brought this girl in, it was originally a main event fight against Holly Holm in Singapore. That is, the thoughts the UFC had on her, that, she thought they should have thought that she could go out there and compete in a main event against Holly Holm. And obviously it really hasn't come to fruition in the UFC. I mean, what is she? I mean,
could you imagine if that fight would have happened?
Yeah, I know, man. I mean, really, but she's at the right weight class now. We'll say that. She is 3-2 in the UFC, but I don't know. I'm just kind of underwhelmed. But the thing is, that fucking reach advantage, man. If she ever just puts it together one day and she's able to, use it to her advantage, because she has it. I mean, she doesn't really use it in her fights. Let's just be honest. But I don't know, man. I just feel like one day this girl is just gonna hit a point where, maybe she can put together a really good performance and beat a girl who formerly fought at strawweight. I mean, we do have a former bantamweight versus a former strawweight here. I mean, you got to think Jian Kim is going to be, she is going to be the bigger, probably more pop behind her punches as well. I mean, I don't know, man. This line's a little fucking sketch to me, plus 250 or whatever it is.
Pull the trigger.
I don't hate anybody that. Yeah, I don't hate anybody that takes a shot on that. No, I don't know. It keeps getting steamed, and maybe by fight day we can even get a crazy plus 300. People just love Alexa Grasso, man. I don't know if it's just obviously she is, easy on the eyes for sure, and she's exciting, good striker. But Man, plus 300 would be undeniable. I might have to take like a 1-unit shot on that if it happens. So I'm going to go with Alexa Grasso, but I think Gian Kim has some moments.
That was my number 2, Kelton. Plus 300. I was like, if she hits plus 300, I'm hitting it.
It might happen.
It really might, though. Yeah.
Luke, all right, we go to the next fight. We got co-main event, Robbie Lawler, Neil Magny. What do you got? I know you got a bet here.
So I jumped in on this one early. Thank God I did. I got 2 units on Neil Magny at minus 185. He currently sits like minus 250. I was pretty confident, like at least right around the open, that this was going to get spiked. I did not hit the open. I hit it like I think 2 or 3 days after on FanDuel. But man, we kind of touched about on this in the group chat and even a little bit before, Robbie's 38 now, and he really has not put together a good performance in the last 5 years in totality at all. And you got a guy in Neil Magny who's 33, and I think in the prime of his career, and a guy I'll be first to admit, I have never been giving Neil Magny enough credit. I'm the guy who's been betting against Neil Magny way too much, and I don't know why. I really don't, because you go back and look at his resume, and like the dude's 16-6 in the UFC or something like that. And really the only guys he's losing to, a couple big power punchers in Ponzinibbio and Larkin. Then he's lost to a couple of jiu-jitsu guys in Maya and Rafael Dos Anjos. Both components of their games are literally the top of the food chain at that. And so I think we're really kind of seeing, like, I don't want to say a career resurgence from Neil Magny, because obviously he had like a really long stretch of good W's in there. But I think right now we are seeing the best Neil Magny, and we're seeing a declining Robbie Lawler. So from a stylistic perspective, I think if Neil Magny can kind of pop that jab out and keep that outside movement and just keep kind of Robbie Lawler guessing and making him reach on some of those big shots, I think Robbie will be able to land on some strikes. It's just really whether he's able to land the KO shot or not. Like, I just feel like Robbie's kind of KO or bust in this spot, because even if this does get to the clinch, Neil Magny's got a really solid clinch game, and Robbie's just kind of that pocket brawling, like uppercuts. He's a guy who's going to try to make it a dirty fight. But I think if Neil kind of makes it, I guess, a quote unquote prettier fight, and doesn't engage in these big exchanges and uses his tools and his technical ability and kind of just sticks and moves for 15 minutes, I think he wins this fight at a pretty high clip, like I said. But Robbie still does have power though, man. So, he's got to be careful. But I think minus 185, I'm glad I jumped on it early. I think it's a steal.
Yeah, no doubt. Kelton, what do you got here?
Man, I agree. Minus 185 is a steal. I like Neil Magny in this fight. It's just a tough one because, like, think about what the line would have been in 2015. Like, holy shit. They probably wouldn't even have come close to making the fight in 2015. I mean, that's how big of a mismatch it would have been. But this is the sport we're in. Father Time catches up to everybody. Damage catches up to everybody. Wars catch up to everybody. I mean, man, that Robbie Lawler versus Carlos Condit fight, like, even watching that fight live, I'm thinking there in the 5th round, like, damn, neither of these guys might never be the same again. And that was the case for both of them. Robbie's next fight after the Condit fight gets knocked out badly by Tyron Woodley, comes back a little while later, beats Donald Cerrone, but, like, did he look like the Robbie of old? No, he didn't. I mean, shit, Donald Cerrone even took him down in that fight. And I think Donald Cerrone even landed more strikes on the count, like, really close one. And then obviously losses to RDA, Ben Askren, and Colby Covington. And it's funny, man, because I've seen some people say Neil Magny is not going to be able to take down Robbie Lawler here. But, like, Robbie Lawler's been taken down in every single fight since he lost the title. And Neil Magny's no slouch of a wrestler, man. I mean, took down Kelvin Gastelum like 6 times, something like that. Took down DeLeach Jing Liang 4 times. He's good at that shit, man. I mean, he's real good in the clinch. He knows when to, use the energy for the takedowns. I mean, obviously one of the most well-conditioned fighters in the UFC. And, man, this fight kind of reminds me of Neil Magny versus Carlos Condit a couple years ago. And obviously, Carlos, he didn't look like the same guy. I'm not sure if Robbie Lawler is quite as shot as Carlos Condit is. I mean, it's possible, but like, I don't know. Neil Magny's just that kind of guy where if you're not at the top of your game, Neil Magny's going to put it on you. He's going to use that reach advantage. He's going to, he's going to hold you up against that cage. He's going to take you down. He's just going to outwork you. And I think, I don't know. It's a tough one for Robbie, man, because I feel like his best path is to, go out there, make it a brawl, knock out Neil Magny in that first round. But fuck, man, he's going to use a lot of energy trying to do that. And if he doesn't get it and it hits that second round, like, damn, Neil Magny is not a guy you want to be tired in front of. So bad fight for Robbie Lawler, in my opinion. Neil Magny by decision is a prop I've been looking at all week. Yeah. Not sure if I'm going to play it. Like, plus 100 is kind of the line I wanted on that. I believe it's minus 125 right now, which, it's not too far off, but I like that bet. Neil Magny is he's not a finisher. And really, I mean, like, he doesn't have the power of a Woodley. And then the Ben Askren fight, like, I mean, Neil Magny doesn't have the squeeze of a Ben Askren, so I don't know if he's going to get a sub or anything like that. So I think Magny by decision is a pretty solid read for me here, and I might bet it. We'll see.
Yeah, I think you nailed that, Kelton, to be honest. Like, when was the last time Lawler looked good? I'd argue it hasn't been since the second Rory fight, to be honest. Like, even the Condit fight, it's a memorable fight that was a war. But if you actually watch that fight, that's, in my opinion, one of the all-time robberies. Robbie gets doubled up on strikes for that fight. Like, really, outside of the knockdown he lands, he pretty much gets his ass handed to him. And he had 2 back-to-back wars there. Kelton went through everything else. And even the Cerrone fight, like, peak Robbie Lawler should, Cerrone is pretty much a perfect matchup for him. Should have run through him. And that's 2.5 years ago now, 3 years ago when he fought Cerrone. The thing is, we just haven't seen, like, it's not just that he's slowing down. Like, that's understandable at his age, but it's like the power doesn't really seem to be there either. Like, he's not really hurting people on the feet. I know people keep making excuses for the Colby fight, saying, the threat of the takedown. You know why Colby stopped attempting takedowns and walking forward? Because nothing Robbie threw back was affecting him, like, at all. And, he just doesn't throw. He's passive. The power isn't there. And so, like, it's like, is that going to change because Neil's been knocked out by big hitters before? It's like, well, for that to happen, I have to believe Robbie's a big hitter. But, like, it's been 5 years since he had a great performance, and he's 38. That usually doesn't, unless he found, like, a good doctor in Brazil. That doesn't usually change, at his age. So, like, I kind of look at this. But on the other side, like, I think Magny's kind of got him covered everywhere. Like, I think he's the better striker at this point. I think the output will be better. The reach is better. The one concern I have is that Magny's not really a finisher. And at, like, minus 250, I'm really looking to kind of pay for somebody who at least has some finishing upside there. So I think the line's about right. Maybe should be a little wider towards Magny. But, yeah, like, I don't know a good argument for Lawler winning this other than him winning by KO. And like I said, I just don't see the evidence to suggest that kind of power is still there, that's a high percentage outcome. Like, it's just – there's really nothing there for that. So I made a small play here. I played on Magny round 3 in decision. I think I got a minus 170, I want to say. I pretty much think if he's going to finish this fight, it's going to be in the third round because Robbie's out of gas. But Robbie's, at least the one thing he has seemed to hold up is his durability. So I kind of think it'll go to the cards. But, maybe the old horse will prove me wrong and show he's got one more win left in the tank. But, I just have seen nothing to make me think that's true. Lags, how about you?
Yeah, I think each of you guys touched on great points for this fight, and I really don't have much else to say. I mean, I think the Magny decision line holds a ton of value. I know it's sitting at minus 130, but I think that's crazy considering, like you touched on, John. I think Lawler his durability is still there. I mean, Magny's not going to be able to knock him out here in the spot. So I think if you played the sub or points line would be just as good. So, yeah, I mean, I think Magny rolls. I don't think this is the Lawler of old. I think his time's done, and I think he's probably going to have, maybe one more fight, 2-3 more fights, just fun bangers, and that's probably it for him.
Yeah, agreed. I wish they would give him fun fights, to be honest, and stop giving guys in the top 10. Like, it's ridiculous, to be honest.
What if they give him if Price wins and he beats Cerrone? You think they Price Lawler?
Are you trying to put Lawler like in a funeral home? Like, what do we do? I said fun fights. Like, we all like Rob. He's a nice guy.
Well, that's not that bad.
Well, if we're trying to have him fight till the durability cracks, like sticking him in there with guys like Price, Luke, that's a great way to send Robbie out.
What about Barbarena? Barbarena would be a good fight, maybe. That's not a bad one. At least bang for a little bit.
That is one that's called the if we lose we retire fight. That's the
yeah.
But anyway, we move on. We got the main event. It's only 3 rounds. Got Alexander Rakic, Anthony Smith. Fun fight though. Rakic is a really fun fighter. Lags, I'll start with you. I know you have a bet here. What do you got?
Yeah, so I actually have 2 plays here. I played a parlay with Rakic and Colby Covington, which is later on in the year, and then I have 1 unit on the over 1.5, actually at -145. So pretty much, I think that, like touched on in the last fight with Lawler, I don't see really a way Smith wins this fight other than him getting his back and tapping him out here. I don't see how he's going to make this type of comeback, it being a 3-round fight. And I think Rakic is going to be explosive enough, and he's defensively sound enough on the feet to handle anything that Smith's going to be thrown at him. I think that, honestly, a lot of Smith's wins are overrated, like the Rashad Evans and Shogun fight. Obviously, they're both over-the-hill fighters, and that I don't know. I don't know how this line isn't wide, to be honest. I know we touched on that a lot, that I don't know really who's hammering Smith at this number, but I don't know. I think Rakic wins this pretty high clip, but I don't think that he deadens him quick in the first round. I think it's probably a late second round or third round finish.
Yeah, agreed. Luke, what do you got?
So similar to Lags, I also have a play. I got 1.5 units on the over 1.5 rounds at -130. My biggest thing here is that, Smith is just historically kind of a late finisher in any sort of those comeback wins he has. And I know a lot of people are going to sit there and say, oh, well, Rakic probably just comes out here and deads him in like a round or whatever. But honestly, if you go back and look at the dude's record, how many times is Anthony Smith just getting sparked in the first round? Like almost never. Like he kind of has this shelling type defense. The dude actually is durable, at least early on. And a guy in Rakic, who has had some absolutely vicious KOs, it's not like he's like an overt knockout artist throughout the course of his UFC career. The dude's went to a bunch of decisions. Like the amount of damage that Justin Ledet took in that fight from him was crazy. Like he absolutely put it on Justin Ledet, and was actually able to mix in his wrestling a little bit too. So my big thing here is like, there's obviously the chance. I mean, both guys are explosive. Both guys are powerful. There's obviously the chance, it's 205. Somebody comes out here and gets sparked early. But I mean, based on historics and in how both guys fight, like I don't see this fight getting or ending early. I actually think Rakic just kind of stays conservative and lands maybe some big shots throughout the course of the fight and maybe finishes him late. But I really just don't see that durability of Smith getting sparked early. And I think Rakic just either outpoints him over the course of 3 rounds, gets a late finish, or, there's the chance that, he shoots a takedown and Anthony Smith pulls off some typical Anthony Smith shit and submits him late in the third. But I really don't see an early finish here. I think Rakic rolls, and I think actually we see Rakic holding some gold here in the next couple of years.
Yeah, agreed. Calvin, what about you?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think Rakic is the rightful favor here. I just think there's more going for him in this fight. Like 3 rounds definitely favors Rakic as opposed to 5 rounds, I think, would favor Smith. The fact that Anthony Smith is coming off a really, really brutal beating, and that was only, 3 months ago? I know y'all remember that fight where he said, my teeth are falling out. My teeth are falling out. I mean, bad beating. And it's a shame too, because Anthony Smith was looking really fucking good in that fight, man. Like his striking looked on point. It looked like it was going to be a short night for Glover, but like, shit, dude, Glover is a guy I never want to count out ever again. Although, of course, as soon as I decide I'm not going to count out Glover anymore, that's probably when he's just going to get absolutely steamrolled, which, I mean, could happen in his next fight. But yeah, tough loss for Smith there. I wish for his case this was a 5 round. I wish for his case he wasn't coming off a beating 3 months ago. Also, youth advantage for Rakic. He's just a better athlete in general. He matches Anthony Smith's, height and reach and all that. Big guy for the division, carries a lot of muscle for sure. It really would have been interesting to see this fight over 5 rounds, but hey, that's not what we got. We got a 3-round fight, and in my opinion, I guess I see Rakic getting off to a 2-0 lead here before Smith kind of comes back hard in the third, but I don't know, man. It's just tough to say that because Smith's last 2 fights, ever since the John Jones fight, it's been different, man. He's been coming out stronger in the first and using more energy in the first, and obviously it worked out in the Gus fight. He got the late finish there, but it really looked like he started to slow down in the Glover fight, and I don't know, man. Like, I don't want to see him come out here and just really go hard in that first round again because, Rakic actually slowed down in his fight against Volkan too. So I don't know. I kind of feel like cardio is a big question in this fight. Like, I'm really just interested to see how the first round plays out, who uses how much energy. I don't know. This is just I'm going to be honest. My read on this fight is shit. Like, I really just don't know how it's going to go. All I know is that Alexander Rakic is probably the rightful favorite, and I think you would need some kind of low percentage or kind of, I won't say fluky comeback, but just kind of a comeback. So I get why Smith is a big dog here. So I'll go with Rakic, 29-28 decision.
Yeah, so fun fact. I always wondered throughout Smith's career, like if you follow me on Twitter, I am not I like him personally, but I am not a big fan of Anthony Smith's game. And so I'd always wondered why he was so low volume. He seemed like a decent athlete. And then we watched his last fight with Glover, and he landed more strikes in the first 2 rounds of that fight than he had landed in any fight in his entire career. And then he promptly gassed out. And I think we found our answer as to why he's always been so patient to a fault. In terms of this fight, I actually do have a bet here. I bet Rakic by decision at plus 350 for a unit. Similar to what Luke said, there's a couple things here. First of all, I actually think if Rakic wants to take the path of least resistance here, he could just literally do what he did to Ledet and just take him down and grind him for 3 rounds. Smith really can't defend takedowns. And while I know he's a black belt, he doesn't really have much game off his back. He just always finds himself in bad positions on the mat when he gets taken down. Even most of his submissions are him sort of randomly falling into people's backs. It's really bizarre stuff, to be honest. But first, I don't know that Rakic will do that. He probably won't, but I do think it's in play. The second thing is, I know he's got a bunch of regional KOs. I don't take regional KOs very seriously. I don't think he's a classically big hitter, to be honest. We just saw Volkan get finished by Yuri. Now, he landed a ton on Volkan, and Volkan never really even seemed hurt against Rakic. We saw basically the same thing against Francimar Barroso. His 2 knockouts are the head kick on Manawa. Now, that's vicious. And if he hits Smith with something like that, he's going to sleep. No, I'm not going to say that. And then the Devin Clark fight with Devin Clark, who doesn't have the best chin ever, deciding he just wanted to swing in the pocket with him. That was – I don't think – Anthony Smith's got a lot of flaws as a fighter, but I don't think Anthony Smith's going to just bite down in the mouthpiece, sit in the pocket, and decide, okay, one of us is going out in round 1. It's just not really what he does. And so, I don't know. I do have major concerns about Smith's durability after the Glover fight. No question. He took an otherworldly beating. But, he's taken big beatings before. Thiago Santos Santos finished him, but he put him through a meat grinder, and he came back, and, he fought. His durability didn't suffer at all. It's possible his durability's gone, and he just gets put out immediately. But at plus 350, we just saw Rakic go to a decision against Volkan. We've seen Smith basically – survive 5 rounds with bigger hitters than Rakic. Maybe not bigger hitters, but you get my point. Smith's been uber durable at 205. At a 5-round fight, I wouldn't be playing decision, but in 3 rounds, it's I don't know. I just think it's kind of crazy. I kind of feel like Rakic wins this by decision 40 to 50% of the time. I agree with Lags. I think Rakic is the massive value side here. I just think he's more if Rakic doesn't win this fight, he's a fraud. That's kind of how I view this. Obviously, he get randomly finished, but seriously, everybody was talking him up as the next big thing, and I actually do kind of believe the hype. I think he's awesome, but the Volkan fight he probably should have won. But this is a fight that if you're a serious title contender, you go out there and win. Now, obviously, if he gets memed, whatever, I'll just kind of chalk it up. But if he goes out there and loses over 3 rounds to Anthony Smith, then, we're having a very different conversation about the trajectory of his career. I personally think Smith's only real way to win this fight is by a KO or like a random sub if Rakic gets tired. I don't think he can compete with him on the feet. But like I said, I'm taking the shot on decision because I think, Smith's inactive enough and willing to avoid engagements enough in tandem with his durability to probably get to a decision a large percentage of the time here, where I think Rakic wins it. So, yeah, I have 1 unit Rakic by decision plus 350. We'll see what happens. It's a small slate for me this week. Maybe I'll find something else in the next day or two, but I'm not overly optimistic. So, yeah, guys, thanks for coming out tonight. Kelton, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. And, so as usual, I'm Josh Targaryen. You can find me on Twitter at MMA Fox. You can find Lags on Twitter at Lags_the Capper. And Luke at SWR_betting. Take it easy, guys. Till next week. Thanks again, Kelvin.